Hey guys, it's Matt. Bill sent me this poster recently along with a link that Charlie Wilson's War, the movie starring Tom Hanks, is available for free on YouTube. I think it still is available for free. And I'm glad he sent it to me. I watched it, and everything in this poster is true. This is an insult to anybody that watches the movie's intelligence. It's ridiculous. But remember from yesterday, even if it's real, it's fake. It may have gone down exactly like this, yet it's still fake and an insult to our intelligence. Let me sum up the movie very briefly, then we'll get into more and more detail if anybody wants to stick with us. You don't have to clear fields, etc. So beginning in 1979 through the 80s, the Soviet Union invades Afghanistan, and the United States wants to stop it. They want to stop communism in its tracks, of course. So they have a $5 million budget just to help. I guess they provide Q-tips or, I don't know, maybe little water bottles or something to the Afghan fighters. And they really want to stop it, though. And one little congressman for those in Australia, there's over 500 useless individuals in the House of Representatives. Most have almost no power. They just do what Nancy Pelosi tells them to do. Is that ghoul still there? Who knows? They just vote as they're told. So this little congressman says, we're going to take it upon ourselves to stop the Soviet Union. We're going to start increasing the budget slowly. And me, this little congressman, see that the senators have power. Congressmen have no power. They just vote the way the House leaders tell them to vote. He's going to take it upon himself to start organizing a covert war to arm what's called the Mujahideen, the freedom fighters. That's where bin Laden came from. He's going to start arming them using the cooperation of countries that supposedly hate each other if it wasn't a one world system. Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. Who else is involved? They're all involved, helping Charlie Wilson just under the table, working with the CIA to really start funding and supplying the Mujahideen. This little congressman just did it on his own, and he stopped him. Here's what Wikipedia says. Charlie Wilson's War is a 2007 American biographical comedy drama film. There's your truth drop. Comedy based on the story of U.S. Congressman Charlie Wilson and the CIA operative Gus Avrakotos, whose efforts led to Operation Cyclone, a program to organize and support the Afghan Mujahideen during the Soviet-Afghan War in 1979 through 1989. So it's based on real events. This congressman really did all that. He stopped the Soviets. He pushed them back. First sentence in Wikipedia, it's a comedy. Well, what else? We should just shut the video down now. Okay, quick note, 1 minute or less about spoilers. If you plan on watching this, I think it's still free on YouTube. Of all the movies in the world, I don't think it's possible to spoil this movie via the video I'm about to do. Everybody knows what happens. The Soviets were pushed back. You know what? He's even given an award, Tom Hanks, in the beginning of the movie showing he succeeded. And everything you're about to see is about him organizing his success. So it's scene by scene, this movie. There's some comedy, and they try to insert some drama. It's completely scene by scene. If you like Tom Hanks, especially if you like Philip Seymour Hoffman, who without him, this movie is nothing. If you like that little quirky character that Philip Seymour Hoffman can play, it's worth watching. To me, it's a B- movie. But there was 10, 15 scenes I enjoyed, and it really weighs on if you're a Philip Seymour Hoffman fan. But again, it's completely scene by scene. As Bill depicted here, in one of the opening scenes, he's in a hot tub with strippers and hookers and showing you he's that type of congressman. Then he's flying off to Egypt to try to get their support and flying off to... It's scene by scene. There is no spoilers here at all. We all know what happened. This little congressman succeeded in pushing back the entire Soviet army, and it's completely believable. I've told you guys about this Time magazine I remember looking through as a kid before. This may be the one. It seems somewhat familiar, but maybe not. I just looked through various covers online. This has to do with the SALT II nuclear treaty of 1979. Was that Carter and Brezhnev and their participation in the one world system, whatever it may be. But inside, forget the nukes. I don't want to have that conversation right now, first grade truthers. It showed all the other armaments that the U.S. versus the Soviet Union, tanks, planes, artillery. I've told you about this before. In almost every area, they had the charts and graphs. The Soviets had more stuff, okay, whatever it may be, especially as the munitions became more rudimentary, like artillery. They had more stuff. Now, it might have been older or whatever. And again, I need to talk about this as if countries are really at odds with each other. This is how I have to carry on this conversation, so give me a break with that. But they had more across the board. So again, we see, I'll try to find you some images that they showed in Charlie Wilson's War, where once they got the funding to get this Mujahideen, the anti-aircraft missiles to shoot down the Hind helicopters and to shoot down the MiGs, they brought it across on mules, donkeys, jackasses, and burros. They showed they showed it in the movie. They had the back of the donkey across the mountain is loaded up with armaments. And this is how they did it. This is how they brought down in the Time magazine, it showed the Soviet Union had more stuff across the board. But once you start bringing in the stuff to the Mujahideen with the donkeys, the burros, the mules, and the jackasses across was that the Khyber Pass? Is that the famous Khyber Pass? Matt, it's all a big ritual. The same locations were used then that would repeat later. Yeah, that's how the Not Milk does business. Yeah, absolutely. But it is, they show it in Charlie Wilson's War. The mules, did anybody pack a big gulp on the back of one of those mules? I'm thirsty. Oh, I forgot this from before. A young Emily Blunt appears briefly in Charlie Wilson's War, probably one of her first roles. She's the daughter of a donor in Texas that donates to the congressman. Of course, he immediately sleeps with her, and then they show her, and if anybody's interested in this, I was, bra and panties kind of passed out across Charlie Wilson briefly. If you want to see that, she I don't think she ever showed her body off in any other movie, but she was in the Tom Cruise rinse and repeat movie about him just repeating lifetimes against the aliens. She was called the Full Metal Bitch. You remember that? So to get into more detail as to how this massive Soviet army was repelled by freedom fighters, and by the way, guys, if there are going to be any spoilers, they'll come here. Again, I think they'll be minor. It's actually Julia Roberts in the movie as some sort of Houston-based fundraiser. I think she's the wife of a very rich Texas oil man, but you don't see the husband. She knows the president of Pakistan personally. She does fundraising. The president of Pakistan is in a crisis because all the refugees from Afghanistan, because of the war, are pouring across the border now into Pakistan. And by the way, of course, guys, the death and the suffering is very real. The Not Milk can bring that, of course. That's very real, no matter what you believe countries are or how they work together or a one world system. The suffering, the refugee camps, of course, that's completely real. The Not Milk's very adept at creating those situations. Go out, take a tourist visa to Aleppo today. So it's Julia Roberts that actually starts everything off. Her role is pretty lame as a fundraiser, and get Charlie, you need to do something about this. Charlie, you go out there and you go visit the president of Pakistan. You see the crisis. You see the refugee. Charlie isn't interested at all. He's just getting whatever sex acts in his hot tubs, and he's just running around with strippers. He likes Julie Roberts, the character. Of course, I think she's married. They immediately sleep together. It's just one. So he goes out and then he sees the refugee camps. And I guess I kind of fast forward through part of it. It's where the dehumanized Charlie Wilson, just about cocaine and strippers, the personal side of him comes out. And we need to do something for these poor people. Of course, the United States at that point says they want to stop the Soviets, and they have a $5 million budget and one or two guys in what's called, in the CIA, called the Afghan desk or something, of which I guess Philip Seymour Hoffman is one of these guys trying to work with the Mujahideen freedom fighters on a $5 million budget. So Tom Hanks says he immediately increases it to $10 million, but then starts working on increasing the budget with the chairman of the Armed Services Committee. Of course, they just I forget the name of the actor. They paint him as some fool, which he is. Of course, he just is a puppet like everyone else in Congress. I didn't mean to imply anybody in Congress had any real power. That's several levels up, of course. But you've been here long enough to know that. So the money starts increasing, and then Philip Seymour Hoffman in a strange, basement CIA role. I'm not going to try to do an impression. I just can't do it. We need to make sure the weapons come from other places. Soviet confiscated weapons from different parts of the world. They can't have a big USA on them. And then they're smuggled in to the freedom fighters and the Mujahideen. Hey, like I said before, that's where bin Laden came from. We'll talk about that a little bit later maybe, but I'm not sure I want this video to load. Then they get the mules and the donkeys and the burros and the jackasses to start bringing all this equipment, eventually get the budget up to $500 million. So, oh my gosh, they could print. See, they don't tell the audience. They could just print that up working with the Treasury and the Fed, and, well, they could print up 500 trillion. There's no budgetary concern. But when they presented the movie back in 2007, I believe the movie is, I was going to say everybody back then believed that these budgetary issues were real. Well, they still do. The people down the road, it's been proven over and over again, there's no such thing as a budgetary constraint. Every rumor about a government shutdown, it just goes away. My bad. It just goes away. They make a crisis out of it, and then it just goes away like it never happened. I was going to say everybody believed the budgetary issues were real in 2007, but they still do, except for us. So he has to work hard to get the money when he should have just gone across to, well, if anything were real, it could have just gone across to the Fed and Treasury. They could just print it up on a computer. Let's look at some of the details regarding the movie. Universal Pictures, release date December 21st, 2007, 100 minutes. United States, English, $75 million budget, box office, 119.5 million. Well, this movie's all about kind of solidifying the story. Guilty with the stories. It solidifies on the back end, the bin lot, all that, and oh, it's so pathetically done at the end. Let me tell you about that. So the box office number, Matt, you don't think the box office number is related to what this movie was out to do? The 11 paired with the 9.5 million? Of course I do. You new here? Now, in the movie, as soon as Charlie Wilson supposedly wins, and Dan Rather's CBS News shows the Soviet tanks and artillery with their tail tucked between their legs, leaving Afghanistan, and everything is all rosy and happy, almost immediately it shifts to solidifying on the back end. At this point, the 7-Eleven job application had already been submitted in 2001, helping to solidify that whole story about leaving a vacuum. Oh, and all that. Oh, sure. And Philip Seymour Hoffman originally, he immediately says all the crazies are moving in to, because the United States isn't staying to help rebuild. The United States isn't honoring its commitments. You're just leaving a vacuum. And immediately Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's the Afghanistan desk expert, says all the crazies are coming in. And then it shows just a few minutes later, Tom Hanks in a meeting in the House of Representatives about allocating budget, and he wants $1 million, a measly $1 million, to build some schools in Kabul or for war-torn Afghanistan, and all the congressmen on the other side, giving those sons of bitches $1 million. We'll send snow cone machines. He can, he cares for these people now. He can't even get a little $1 million for some schools. And then you think back, and Philip Seymour Hoffman probably comes in and says again, that leaves the vacuum. See, that solidifies the whole story about the 8-foot tall Arab in a cave. See, that's probably what, Matt, is that what the movie Charlie Wilson's War was out to do? Strategically positioned and released in 2007, just when people were losing a little bit of interest via the job application, 2001? Of course, that's what it was intended to do. You think it was intended to make money? Matt, how does even if it's real, it's fake come into play? This is one of the greatest examples of all time, in my opinion, of even if it's real, it's fake. So knowing what we know in terms of what happened, watching the movie, how they brought the weapons over on mules and the big bad Soviet Union was driven out, does anybody believe that that's possible? They have aircraft from above, supposedly satellites, they have these hind helicopters, and then again, the United States couldn't get them the weapons that they really had, just stuff they could smuggle in, coordinated by Israel and Egypt and Pakistan on mules. Does anybody, and we see how ridiculous that is, okay? I don't need to keep proving that point. To anybody listening, the words coming out of my mouth, that is absolutely ridiculous. So you just call it, must be fake. No, it's not fake. The real congressman, Charlie Wilson's been dead for over 10 years. But if you went to interview him at his home, I don't think if he was on his deathbed confession, he wouldn't say to you, "Oh, I was the front man. It was all faked, and we were best friends with I almost said Khrushchev with Brezhnev. We played pickleball with Brezhnev." No, it's like, even if it's real, it's fake. I mean, there's a lot of real elements, but it's still, to us, to just see through the entire scripted reality. I'm saying what Gus is saying is Charlie Wilson on his deathbed. You might say, "Go ahead, Charlie, give me the deathbed confession." He might say, "We did all that. You know how hard it was for me to get the money to help the Mujahideen? He like a pawn. We know it's ridiculous what happened." But if you interview the individual players, again, first grade truth is everybody is in on it. It's all a script. They're playing pickleball together, even Brezhnev, and this reality doesn't work that way. Charlie Wilson on his deathbed said to you in an interview, he said, if it wasn't for me, I worked hard to get the supplies and the money to the Mujahideen. He might believe every bit of it. That is generally how this reality works, even though it's a fake reality. I don't know if that made any sense, but I don't think I'm going to re-record. Well, if the key players, even the fundraiser Julia Roberts, believe they did all this, well, why does it look so impossible to us what was done? It is impossible what was done. Why does it look so ridiculous to us, so fake? And that's maybe something we'll never know, but the same old set of possibilities, that these entities are not the same as you and I. It's an NPC. It's something that has a soul that's locally derived. It's somebody or some entity that is completely on the frequency or the vibration or download of this reality. They believe they're doing all of it. There is nothing that ever seems wrong. It's not that much different than why your best friend goes and watches the Ribby Baby Bobby Ribby Baby and will say to you, "Well, Matt, he was nervous." And everybody responds differently to grief. It's no different. Your best friend saying that to you. There's a key scene in the movie right before the Mujahideen get the weapons they need to fight back the Soviets, where all the different players, countries that hate each other, have to come together, with Charlie Wilson being the facilitator of all this and the arbitrator, where Israelis are at the table with the Egyptians and I guess Pakistan in there. I don't know what other countries. They all hate each other. It's like scenes in Star Trek, The Next Generation, when you have Klingon houses warring with each other, and he's like, "I'm not sitting at this table with that Patak." It's like they're casting disparaging insults at each other, and he's like, "This is ridiculous. If you were a time traveler, they supposedly had that meeting at the El Farad hotel, or whatever, December, whatever, and you're going to go and see, there won't be nothing there. You walk into the hotel as a time traveler, going back to 1978 and a half, and you're like, they're here. There's Charlie Wilson. This meeting really took place. But Matt says it's fake. Their whole reality's fake. They actually may have had the meeting. These people believe in what they're doing. That's generally how this reality works. I don't know exactly how it's coordinated through a frequency. It doesn't mean there's nothing that's completely put on, like I said in yesterday's video. We don't need to rehash that. But most things, especially in an example like Charlie Wilson's war, if you went out on a certain date, you're the time traveler, there's Charlie Wilson actually touring the camps, just like history says. I thought it was fake. No, most things are more real, yet the whole reality's fake. So it was better described in yesterday's video, but Charlie Wilson's war here is a great example of, even if it's real, it's fake. Thanks for listening.